So I'm Dan Jenkins. I'm Dan_Jenkins on Twitter. I'm primarily a Node developer. I've been writing Node for probably 3.5 years, since it was at 0.4, since it was a baby. I love Lego. I love Lego a lot. I play with Technic. It's good fun. And I recently started up my own company called VoIP. We do a lot of VoIP things, WebRTC things, Node things, anything web or VoIP related. So why am I qualified to come and talk to you about WebRTC? So I was a web developer. I did PHP for a long time. Then I was in a transition over to Node and VoIP. I was part of a year-long project to move our call center over to VoIP. And part of that was Node. So all of that, I learned VoIP is very difficult. And that's why things like Twilio exist. And yeah, it's not something a normal kind of web developer type person can get into. There's just so much complexity, I'm not even going to bore you with it. So for the past year, I've been working on a new WebRTC service, which I do mention later, but I'm not trying to sell you anything. So the next 40 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about what WebRTC is. There's no point talking about WebRTC if no one has a clue about what it is and how everyone can use it and how complex it is. What WebRTC isn't, so what are the things that we should not be using WebRTC for? Backing. Who is backing WebRTC? Who are the big players? Like, how do we know that WebRTC isn't just going to die a death tomorrow? WebRTC in customer service today, how people are using it today in big scale applications. How we can go and use WebRTC to give better, intelligent customer service. Let's stop ponying around with phone systems and IVRs and things like that, and let's actually give a better user service to our customers. And then, like, more technical detail. Let's go into like how we can actually go and do that. So I'm kind of curious. Who's in the room? So who's a developer here? Okay. Who isn't a developer is a better question then. Oh, cool. Okay. So yeah, I'm quite used to kind of talking to CEOs and COOs and people like that that don't really know what WebRTC is. So who knows what WebRTC is? Who has never heard of WebRTC before? Okay. So what is WebRTC? A lot of people are saying it's a disruptive technology. And it is. It's causing shockwaves in a lot of platforms, a lot of technologies. Like the fact that WebRTC is about is kind of causing a lot of change to happen. So WebRTC stands for Web Real-Time Communication. So it's real-time. It's right now. You can go and use it today. It's a technology. It's not a product. You have to go and build your product on top of WebRTC. You can't just go and use WebRTC and expect for everything to just kind of slot into place. It's not an end product. I see WebRTC is a story, and you really have to get to the end of the story to really understand WebRTC. So a lot of the talks that I see about WebRTC kind of talk about, oh, it's peer-to-peer, it's free, and it's amazing. Like, I can go and do like 20 lines of code, and I can go talk to your browser in your browser. But what happens when I want to go talk to your browser on the other side of the world, and there's, I don't know, an ISP's firewall in the way? There's real-life problems. There's real-life issues. So WebRTC is like a story, and then there's like 6 or 7 chapters in that story. Like I said, WebRTC is peer-to-peer. no servers, kinda. I'll explain kinda later. WebRTC is encrypted by standard. If you have a WebRTC connection, it has to be encrypted. That is part of the standard, end of. And modern day browsers support it. I talk about modern day browsers, I'm talking about Chrome, Firefox, and Opera. And it's on a lot of devices too. So your Chromecast uses WebRTC. Google Glass has some WebRTC stuff in it, and it's not really finalized. But you can use your phone, you can use your iPad. You can't use your iPad's browser, and you can't use Android's browser, really. But if you were to make a native app, there are some SDKs out there that Google make, among some others, that will enable you to do WebRTC on a mobile. So it's estimated in a recent study that there's going to be 6.2 billion devices that are WebRTC enabled by 2018. 6.2 billion. That's a lot of devices. So it's plug-in free. That is the biggest thing about WebRTC. It's plug-in free. It's in the browser. Like, you don't have to install Flash or anything like that. It's mostly plug-in free. There's a plugin available for Safari and IE to give it some of the functionality of WebRTC, and that's a free plugin. Doesn't support absolutely everything yet, but something is better than nothing. But really, it's complicated. So let's take a look at the table. The green means that everything is working as the spec. The cross means that nothing is working. And the blank is kind of works, but we haven't really finalized anything yet. So you can see that Canary, for example, is very much leading the pack, followed by Chrome, followed by Firefox Nightly. IE has upcoming support for something called ORTC, which I'll talk about later. And then Safari has nothing. So ORTC, or WebRTC 1.1, or WebRTC 2.0. So Microsoft and some others kind of are talking about a new spec that kind of does other things. Some of the stuff that WebRTC does is it's not really finalized yet entirely, so I'm going to ignore it. So WebRTC has kind of two types of channels. There's media channels that allow you to send audio and video. I was thinking about playing audio, so you could hear the cat. I mean, what presentation doesn't have cats in? Kittens make everything better. So yeah, you can send audio and video both ways, or you can send it one way. So there's media channels. There's data channels, so you can send pictures of cats. You can send pictures of anything, you can send text, you can send whatever. That is just a pure kind of data channel. But there's a lot of complexity. I'll talk about this a bit more later. So there's what happens when there's a firewall in the way that you can't kind of poke your way through. There's things called turn servers, and so it's not really peer-to-peer anymore. Then we get onto the kind of area where web developers aren't necessarily very comfortable. So there's things like ICE, stun, and turn, and SDP munging and trickle ICE. So ICE, there's ICE candidates, and this is how your two peers kind of say, hey, come talk to me on this address. No, there's another address that I can come talk to you on. So you can get like 8, I've seen as many as 20 ICE candidates in. So there's SDP, and SDP includes, so if I go back a second, what's in the background there that you can barely see, that's SDP. SDP is just text. And then somewhere within there's some ICE candidates. Then there's stun. So stun is a mechanism for a peer to find out what its public IP address is, and that's the kind of most basic way of talking about it. And then there's turn. So turn is a mechanism, and you can get turn servers, and it's all open source from Google. And yeah, I go through a load of ICE candidates. Oh, I can't connect with all these normal kind of connections. One of them will end up being a turn server, and all your traffic will get routed via the turn server. So you can do audio, video, and data, but a lot of people don't know you can do screen sharing, to a point. I mean, Chrome, you can do it. You used to have to select an option in the experimental flags, but that's recently, I think, been taken away, and you can only do screen sharing if you've got a Chrome app now, I think. And it's HD. It can be HD. Yeah, everything, cats. So there's Opus codecs, there's VP8 codecs, there's loads of codecs, and you kind of don't have to worry about it too much. But it's HD. So you can get awesome quality audio conversations, video conversations for free. And it's designed for the web. So it uses, in its most basic form, it uses web tooling. So in your browser, you can access it with JavaScript. In an SDK, you can access a decent API via the SDK. So it's designed for the web. It's not designed for complexity. It's not designed for VoIP engineers that understand like the underlying network. It's designed for normal, what I call normal developers that don't care about C, don't care about the underlying stuff. So what WebRTC isn't, and I mean, I'm very passionate about this. WebRTC is not a replacement for telephony. It's just not. Like, yes, we live in a world where everyone has a phone. So we want to be able to interconnect our WebRTC stuff with the phone. So I can phone you and go, and I can phone a number and I can phone you on a WebRTC device, a WebRTC peer. So yes, we want to kind of interconnect all these worlds, but it's not a replacement. And there are a lot of telcos getting into this, trying to figure out how they can monetize WebRTC. So there are a load of things missing from WebRTC. Signaling. So the whole, I want to talk to you. So how do I talk to you? How do I set up that call? How do I set up that data sharing? It's all through signaling. So in your browser, for example, you would say, I want to create an offer to go talk to whoever. Somehow you've got to send that SDP message over to your friend, your peer. But WebRTC doesn't give you any of this. Like, you have to set up your own signaling server. So there's a load of them out there. People use Node, people use like Socket.io and stuff, and whatever. So you still have to be able to kind of send it. In its most rudimentary way, you could actually get the SDP stuff from your browser, send an email. So the other person would take that email, get the SDP stuff, pass it into their browser, and then, hey presto, you'd then have to kind of send back an answer, and it's very complicated in terms of like without this signaling stuff. Discoverability. So a lot of people want to use WebRTC in a discoverable way. So I've got a friend, and a friend's just come online, and I want to talk to that friend. How do you find out that they're online? So discoverability. You have to be able to find people that you want to talk to. Authentication. So there are services out there like appear.in where you can have a conversation with anyone without any authentication. But if you're building something for your call center or your business, you're going to want some sort of authentication. And it's not mobile friendly to a degree. So I'm walking down the street and I'm on my phone and I'm in an app that's WebRTC enabled and I'm talking to one of my friends, and you change cell tower. So you get a different IP address, and it's not just going to deal with that for you magically. You have to go and renegotiate that call. And a lot of the time you can do this seamlessly, but it's not given to you for free. So SDKs are making all of this a lot easier, and services are making this a lot easier, but it's not free. I see it as it's like building Lego. All the bits are standards from the W3C or whatever. And you have to put them all together, and eventually you get to a point of happiness, and everything works. So I see it like Lego. I love Lego. So WebRTC has huge backing, like huge. So Google came up with the original specification for it. Mozilla are doing a load of stuff with it. I mean, in Firefox Nightly, and recently in beta, but I can't get it to work, you can make a WebRTC call to anyone via Firefox. So if you go download Firefox Nightly, maybe beta, but I couldn't get it to work, there's a button in the toolbar that looks like a speech bubble. And you can go give that to anyone in the world, and you would have a WebRTC call within your browser. Amazon. So Amazon are huge. We all know this. Tiny book company that eventually rules the world. So Amazon are huge, and Amazon are using WebRTC today in production for the Kindle Fire. That nice little lady that pops up, I think her name's Amy, that's all done via WebRTC. So there's a company called TalkBox. So there's a load of companies out there. TalkBox, but TalkBox are the people that Firefox, Mozilla, use behind their service. But then there's loads of others. So there's Cision, there's Andiet, there's Twilio, and then there's Respoke. Respoke's the company that I am working with right now. And they all kind of aim to make certain parts of WebRTC easier. They're not all doing the same thing in the same way. And you might be able to use different parts of different things to kind of give you a bigger, better solution. But there are loads of companies out there. So who's using WebRTC in customer service today? So like I was just talking about, Amazon Mayday. Amazon Mayday uses it, and a statistic that I recently read is crazy to me, and should be crazy to anyone that has ever done anything with a call center, contact center, in your lifetime. 75% of the queries that Amazon get from their Fire HDX users are via Mayday. So I can't remember how many people, but there's an awful lot, and 75% of them are using WebRTC today. In that same article, they said the average response time was like 10 seconds. I mean, Amazon has a lot of people and it has a lot of money, so it's kind of what I'd expect. But it's astounding to me that 75% of their calls from their users are using WebRTC. There's a company called Zendesk. They have like WebRTC built into their solution to help people. And then Google Hangouts, Google Helpouts. So Helpouts is their kind of business way of enabling businesses to talk to their customers. So there's Google Helpouts and Hangouts. So every time you use Hangouts today, you're now using WebRTC, mostly. I won't bore you. They're using WebRTC. They're not using standard WebRTC. But they are using WebRTC, so that's a plus. So, intelligent customer service. There recently was a summit in Vegas earlier on in the year, I think it was in May, called WebRTC Customer Service Summit. And when you think that WebRTC is as new as it is, this is amazing. The fact that there is a whole summit that people paid to go to find out about how to give better customer service using WebRTC. It's crazy. And I was really, really happy when I found it. Luckily, I found out about it afterwards, and I didn't go. So WebRTC can give us increased revenues. How can it give you increased revenues, I hear you asking? Well, so you start getting cleverer. Clever is not a word. You start getting cleverer. So you can start tracking your users via WebRTC, via all these tools, and you can start kind of nudging them in the right way. And there are other ways. So everything with WebRTC involved becomes a little bit cheaper because there are no servers. So you can then start kind of claiming back some of that money that you're going to spend on hardware or instances in the cloud or whatever. You can start kind of clawing that back and some of that time and energy that you have to spend and kind of shove your resource into another place to give you increased revenues. So it's a lower cost. So you could do phone calls from a browser to someone else years ago. But the key thing is that it all had to go through something. So I know of one service that I used in the past that allowed you to make a phone call from a browser, and it was using a Java applet. But I know that in the end, that was then connected to something called Asterisk, an open source phone system. And then that was then going out via what we call the PSTN, the phone lines, out to the call center. And then the call center were then paying for the phone, the actual phone call. And then you had all of your infrastructure as well. So the fact that WebRTC is kind of peer-to-peer lowers the cost. So who's heard of the term cost center? So call centers, contact centers are generally referred to as cost centers because how do they make any money? Like, aren't they just answering people's calls and people are complaining all day? Well, that's some call centers. But if you can kind of turn around some of this cost, because phone calls cost, phones cost, all of this cost that happens, if you can start kind of removing some of that cost and allowing you to do other stuff with that money, then you start removing that cost center. So better interaction, cost less, and faster interactions. So what I mean by this is if you want to phone me, I'm the call center agent, and you've got a problem. And you've got a problem, and so I used to work for a company called Holiday Extras who are sponsoring this conference. And we sold airport parking, airport hotels, along with a load of other stuff. And we used to get, and kind of our demographic was 50-year-olds, generally. They're people that go on holiday the most. And a lot of 50-year-olds don't like websites. They get confused. I'm generalizing, but it's very true. So we'd get calls into our call center, and they'd be going, well, I can see this thing on the screen, but I don't really understand what I need to do. And so you'd end up spending more time on the phone trying to help them, or you'd end up kind of making the booking for them, which again costs. So if you can have better interaction with your customer by maybe automatically linking that agent to the end user via a peer-to-peer connection, you can then automatically start saying, oh, I can see your screen, or let me help you. And that better interaction allows you to actually keep your costs down because that call is going to take less time or whatever. So all of this allows for everything costing you less money and allows for faster interactions. Like, we all hate phoning call centers, but sometimes it's necessary, and it would be really cool if more of them could kind of turn around to you and go, oh, I see exactly what your problem is. Because we're web developers, we know we mess up. Like, we're not robots. Like, there are problems in code. So a lot of the time, the biggest complaint that I used to get was things are broken. Well, how are they broken? Well, I don't know. I'm not a technical person. How am I supposed to know? Okay, so yeah, it's this never-ending cycle of, well, how are we going to fix the problem? When you start interacting and having these connections, you can start sorting out some of these problems. So you get better context by WebRTC. So you can start saying, so if a customer calls me and they've done it through their browser, that means I can instantly tell where on the website they are and what product they were buying and how long they've been on the page. You can do all of this today, but it costs money. I don't know what I'm doing. So you get better context by connecting that customer to your call center agent or whatever. So here's a thought. If you could shave a second off every single call that comes into a call center, how much money would you save per year? I mean, I know that we used to ask this question to our call center, and they'd tell us, and I can't/won't give those figures out, and it means nothing, because every call center is different. So imagine if you're Amazon. If you could shave a second off every single call that comes into Amazon, just by having better context, how much money do you save a year? Whether or not you then spend that money on other things, or you lay off people, hopefully not, but imagine that. Imagine Amazon scale. So in today's world, everyone wants a more personal connection with the person that they're talking to, generally. Well, I mean, I use live chat an awful lot. I don't really care about the personal connection. I just want an easy answer and not have to go through loads of IVRs and everything else. But more and more people, especially older people, want that personal connection. They want to know that there's someone real on the other end of that phone. So if you can start video enabling your contact center, then your customer is going to be happier, or at least have it as an option. So Amazon actually do this really well with Mayday. Mayday is a one-way video connection. So it's two-way audio, one-way video. So this is something you couldn't easily do with phone. Like even if you had like this VoIP service and you had this Java applet on your page before and you could video chat with someone, it was actually very difficult to have that one-way video. Generally, it had to be two-way. And a lot of people aren't comfortable with other people seeing us. I mean, how many people phone call centers when they're, I don't know, in their boxers? I mean, that's probably not very nice. But you get the point. So Amazon do this really, really well. So you can see the agent on the other end of the phone, but they can't see you. So that instantly gives me, as a user, recognition that there's actually a person. And they're actually taking my concern seriously. And it takes away this kind of, what am I trying to say? Our call center agents can be rather rude, let's say. Not holiday, yeah, I don't know. So people, we've all seen the call center on BBC Three, maybe. You should watch it, it's really funny. But you'll see that they'll mute a call halfway through and start slagging the person off. I mean, video, the fact that you're on video means you can't do that anymore, and they're actually taking your query seriously, and you've actually got their full attention. So that can only lead to better stuff. I mean, whether or not they then go off afterwards and do whatever is entirely up to them. I mean, they have to sit on a phone like all day. So, I mean, I don't blame them. So, is it a revenue generator or is it just for reducing cost? I would say it's both. You can reduce an awful lot of cost with WebRTC, but you can actually also generate revenue, like with better decisions. And like I was saying earlier, so phone systems and phones and phone lines, they all cost lots of money. If you can kind of reduce all of that cost and remove that high cost infrastructure, then that can only be beneficial. So Twilio do this really, really well. They allow you to get a phone line without a phone line. And you don't have to have a VoIP server, and you don't have to have failover. So no one has one VoIP server. Everyone has two VoIP servers, and the second VoIP server just sits there for the whole year doing nothing because the other one's doing all the work. So you've got this infrastructure that costs lots of money, and you don't necessarily need it anymore. And because of everything that I've just been talking about, you end up building a better relationship with your customer. But it's not just one way. It's not just about customer. It's about our employees. So WebRTC enables us to remote work easier. So right now, if you remote work in a call center, you would generally need to have like a soft phone, which is a phone as software on your machine. And you would VPN in or something into your corporate network, and hey presto, you're connected to the phone system. Wouldn't it be awesome if I could give out a tablet or a Chromebook or something and just have my users log into my customer relationship system type thing, and for phone calls just to come in? I mean, again, it's a little bit possible today, but it's dodgy. Let's just use the word dodgy. And because it's web tooling, you can then get metrics. So you can end up getting metrics about what happened in the call, how much bandwidth, and all of the kind of cool metrics. But you can also get metrics on how people are using your website via WebRTC, using some of the interactions with WebRTC, and you can start actually painting a picture. Whereas today, VoIP and kind of the web are two separate things. So it brings in metrics that we are all very used to. So better customer service with WebRTC. So how can we actually give better customer service? Everything before was just some ideals. So speech to text. So say you've got a call center in India, and I'm speaking English, and they don't really understand English very well, but they get paid to do their job, so we can't complain. Wouldn't it be cool if I phone you, you're a call center agent in India, and everything that I'm saying gets converted to text, so there's no misunderstanding? But it's both ways as well. So you get foreign people calling into a call center. What if you could have some mechanism to have the speech converted to text? Wouldn't it be cool if the other person is speaking French and I'm speaking English and I don't understand French? Wouldn't it be cool if I could still deal with their query in some form or another? So we used to have issues when the volcano erupted, and everyone called holiday extras, and they were like, "Oh, my flight's cancelled." So everyone in the company actually had to kind of help out in the long term, answering all those phone calls, because our call center wasn't designed to handle that many concurrent calls. So wouldn't it be cool if end user like me can start using that text? Or the call gets It gets analyzed, that's the word I'm looking for. It gets analyzed as the person's talking, gets converted to text, and so that all gets analyzed, and you get a little bit of text that says, oh, they're actually looking for this. Instant session recording. So again, today you can do this, but it's very difficult, and it's actually very bandwidth heavy. Because WebRTC is peer-to-peer, I can record that call, and there's no servers involved or anything. I can record it locally in my browser. Support direct from the browser, direct support from the browser. So there's no more picking up phones. There's better information to be gained from that direct browser call. And there's always new devices, new possibilities. So for example, I saw a recent demo where someone was using Google Glass in a warehouse with WebRTC, and the glass would pick up on some of the barcodes. And then using WebRTC, they were doing some cool stuff to kind of integrate that user into their system. So there was no more kind of picking out the wrong item from the shelf. It was all kind of WebRTC'd. User tracing. So again, I'm not going to talk about it too much because I've already kind of gone into it. But because you've got a direct connection up to that user at that time, because it's peer-to-peer, you can start kind of tracing what they're doing. You can know where their mouse is, or whatever. And you get rid of IVR hell. Does everyone know? I've mentioned IVRs quite a few times. Everyone know what IVRs are? IVRs are, thank you for calling us. Press 1 for customer services. Press 2 for a never-ending list of IVRs. So yeah, you can get rid of IVRs using WebRTC. And then, as I was talking about earlier, you can upgrade the call media as the call progresses. So I can phone you, and it's a call, and it's an audio call, because everyone's used to audio calls. And then as the conversation goes on, you might get a bit more comfortable, or the other person kind of wants that face-to-face conversation, and you can upgrade the call as it goes on. I mean, there's actually a real part of the spec that is enabling this. I've gone over, haven't I? 12:30. No, I'm okay. So, yeah, you can upgrade the call as it goes on, but it's not part of the actual spec. You can renegotiate the call. And then near instant and simple video sharing. So, hopefully, very soon, everyone will agree on a spec for this. But the fact that I can maybe see my user's screen and know exactly what the issue is because I can see their screen. And that you can do this today, but it requires downloading plugins and everything else. And using WebRTC, you won't have to do any of that. It will just happen. I'm just going to stand still. So tighter integration into your CRM. So Zendesk is doing exactly this. So we all know that differentiation is the thing that gives customers something to talk about and something to actually go, oh, this really cool company did this really cool thing for me. And it's a differentiator. People are actually going to come back and use your service because it's a differentiator. You've done something really useful with technology to make that end user's life better. We all know that happy customers spend more money. So if you can keep your customers happy from a support point of view, they're more likely to come back and spend more money with you. But like I've been saying all this time, none of this is new. The thing that is new is it's peer-to-peer, and it's plug-in free. You don't have to download anything. You don't have to get an 80-year-old granny going and downloading something on the internet so that you can see what they're doing. It's all just there. So what does peer-to-peer mean to you? It means less infrastructure, less complexity, and cheaper solutions. So examples. What are some ways that we can use WebRTC today? You can scrap your phone system. It's a little bit extreme. Everyone still needs phone numbers and everything else. But you could do it right now today if you were creating a startup that doesn't need phone numbers and just has a customer support system via your website. You don't actually need a phone system. Everything can be done with WebRTC. So I'm actually really excited about this space. Hotels, Airbnb, this kind of thing. Wouldn't it be, so Airbnb, you never actually get your host's phone number or something like that. So what happens when you need to talk to them? It's all done for privacy, like so that the end user, so the host's phone number doesn't get compromised, blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't it be cool if you had an Airbnb app and it allowed you to phone the host via WebRTC? It's all privacy. I mean, Airbnb could do this today by giving them out a phone number, and then Airbnb kind of forwards that phone call onto the host, and everything remains the same. But this is no cost to a degree. So the other thing that I'm really interested in is how hotels and people like that start using it. So in a year's time, maybe 2 years' time, you won't be going and shopping for a TV and going, oh, I really need a 4K TV, because every TV will be 4K. What you'll be asking for is, does it support WebRTC in some manner? So I'm I really expect hotels to pick up on this very quickly. All of their TVs are already network enabled and everything. That's how they actually get the signals, mostly. So wouldn't it be cool if I could phone the concierge from the TV and actually have a face-to-face conversation? That's quite cool. You can remove security barriers. I tried to find a really cool picture for this, and I couldn't find one. So you can remove security barriers. So when you call your bank, you have to give them some sort of password or whatever, somehow. Some tell you to key it in to the phone, and then the phone system kind of tells the end user, yep, this is right. Or you're on live chat, and you have to kind of key in all this information in live chat so that the end user can actually do stuff. Wouldn't it be cool if the system already knew you had logged into your account on a website, your internet banking or whatever, and be able to make a phone call and not have to deal with all of that security? I mean, yes, you have to think about security, but that's part of the whole solution. Wouldn't it be cool if you remove the security for the end user? Everyone hates giving out passwords because people figure out how to scam. And they phone you and go, what's your password? And everyone goes, well, not everyone. Less technical people give out those passwords. So wouldn't it be cool if you could kind of stop doing it? And that's it. Thank you very much. Has anyone got any questions they'd like answered?